With Chelsea and Arsenal set to meet today in Premier League action, it seemed like the right time to look back at the Mykhailo Mudryk saga from this January and how he ended up at Chelsea, not at Arsenal. We're going to dive into that and more here at Stoppage Time at Pints and Punditry. Welcome back to Stoppage Time here at Pints and Punditry. If you don't already, please hit that subscribe button for me. Like this video while you're watching it. Definitely comment below. I know this is a hot topic for a lot of fans, not just Chelsea and Arsenal fans. And of course, let's keep the discussion going on Twitter. You can find me at TotalFIFACM. Mykhailo Mudryk. Remember him, right? It's almost like we forgot about him because he's been buried in the Chelsea depth where they've got so many players they can't even fit them all in the dressing room and guys are sitting on the ground. But he was the big name this January. He was coming off a strong World Cup performance with Ukraine. He's having a solid season with Shakhtar Donetsk. And he was the hot commodity. He was the big ticket item this winter in this January transfer window. And it was assumed, it was almost a foregone conclusion at that time, if you remember back, that he was going to Arsenal. I think there were public quotes by him complimenting Mikel Arteta. He was liking their social media posts, Arsenal social media posts, if you put stock in those sorts of things, which once you're talking about the transfer rumors and the transfer market, people are just dying for some sort of clue, and so they do put a lot of stock in those things. And if nothing else, this should be a lesson not to do that and not to fall for that trap. Because what we thought was a foregone conclusion ended up not happening. He never made it to Arsenal. Chelsea swooped in at, I wouldn't say the 11th hour, but it was definitely out of nowhere and made a huge offer to Shakhtar Donetsk, and they got their man. This was, if not the first, then certainly the biggest splash that Todd Boehly made in the what turned out to be completely aimless wandering through the transfer wilderness that Chelsea took us on that ride this winter in their just ridiculous spending. And it's probably the most egregious example of why it didn't work. It's not a knock on Mykhailo Mudryk. He is a fantastically talented player, and hopefully, for his sake, he will get some actual guidance at Chelsea at some point. He'll get an actual coach who fits into an actual system, or will build a system around some of their more talented players. And he's definitely one of them. He needs to be one of those players. And for the price they paid, he ought to be a guy that they build around out on that left-hand wing where if you've watched these Chelsea games, I mean, the guy really is a physical beast. He's fast, he's big, he's strong, he's great with the ball at his feet. What hasn't happened is he hasn't scored yet. But how much of that is really his fault? And I am going to make some excuses for Mykhailo Mudryk. I mean, first of all, Chelsea hasn't scored. Period. Right? So why should we expect him to be scoring proficiently when nobody on the team has scored? And it's not like they're completely devoid of goal scorers. Raheem Sterling and João Felix and Kai Havertz. And no, those guys aren't true strikers, but they're all good, solid goal scorers. So there's no reason why we should have these expectations for Mykhailo Mudryk that we're not having for the whole team. And we do, of course, have them for the whole team, but he's hardly the only one not scoring. But I think we are, and our expectations were totally off on the adjustment period that comes with the jump he made. It's not like he had been in La Liga or the Bundesliga, right? He was coming from Ukraine, from Shakhtar Donetsk, straight to the Premier League. That is a massive jump right off the bat. Secondly, he was doing it mid-season, and I have banged this drum a lot because it seems to be overlooked, and maybe it's the Football Manager FIFA crowd, of which I fall into, but it's not the same in the real world, right? You have to remember, you can't just make these January transfers, slot them in a system, and boom, they're just going to take off. This isn't fantasy football, this isn't FIFA, this isn't Football Manager. Training matters, right? Fitting into a system matters. Learning personnel, learning your teammates, learning what your coach wants you to do, where you're supposed to be on the pitch. This stuff matters. And you don't get the proper training really mid-season to learn these sorts of things. That's what preseason trainings are for. That's what the off-season's for. So for a 22-year-old to be expected to come in and immediately figure all that out while dealing with a gigantic jump in competition level, and oh, by the way, a new country, a bunch of people speaking a language you're probably not all that familiar with, and all of the other human elements that come with this sort of move. what should our expectations really have been? I mean, certainly the expectations for Chelsea have been higher and more, should be better than what they've met. But for Mudryk himself, yeah, I'm sure we expected a few goals, but we should not have expected him to come in and hit the ground running and just be this dominant force. That was never a realistic or fair expectation for a young player or for Chelsea, but they may have had that expectation. On top of it all, it doesn't help that you then fire another manager, and you've had, first of all, Frank Lampard, who God knows what he's bringing to the table in terms of tactical ability, and just all this transition, it just makes everything worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Would he have been better off at Arsenal? Short term, 100%. 100% he would have been better off at Arsenal. He could have played sparingly. There would have been very little pressure on him. He probably would have made the roster regularly and would have come in as a substitute. 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here. Now we would have been playing in a title race. That's a different sort of pressure. But Mikel Arteta would have been better at managing the expectations, managing how he was exposed to the Premier League and his transition in there. Not to mention Mikel Arteta has just proven himself to be better tactically than anybody who's been running Chelsea lately. So definitely short term that would have been a better landing spot for him. Long term, I don't think we can say that yet. I don't think it's fair to determine Mykhailo Mudryk's future yet. Chelsea could absolutely turn this around with the right manager, and they clear out the locker room and build around a set core of guys, of which Mudryk should be a part of that. If for no other reason than selling him off now would mean a massive hit financially, because they're never going to recoup what they paid for him. So he's got to be a part of this future. They're going to lose money on him if he's not. So the right manager who can build around him, make him a centerpiece, and fit him into a system that benefits his skill set, yes, he could still flourish at Chelsea. Remember, this is a young guy. I believed he signed one of those 7-year contracts that they were giving out to divvy up the allocation of the spending for financial fair play reasons. So he should be with Chelsea for a while. Like I said, if they sell him off now, they're losing a ton of money. So they're stuck with him. They're not stuck with anybody. They got a lot of assets to sell, but he's probably not going to be one of them, if for no other reason than just how it would affect the books. So he's a guy they're going to have to build around. So his future is not written yet. We need to adjust the expectations. We need to stop writing him off after 4 months of a 22-year-old making a massive jump in competition with absolutely no guidance. Hey, here's a whole new league to play in, and here's this rudderless ship we want you to go be dominant leading. What are we thinking here? There's no chance that was ever going to work. So yes, he would have been better off with Arsenal, but the book is not written yet with Chelsea. Now, whose fault is this? Probably the people giving Mudryk advice would be my guess. You're 22 and somebody offers you a lot more money, and oh, by the way, they're a big club too. Yeah, you're probably going to take that. Somebody in his camp should have said, hey, Arsenal's offering you a lot of money too, and that's going to be much better for your career. You're probably better off going there. But somebody guided him wrong, probably his agents who were trying to grab the money. And this is a fundamental problem with the transfer market and young players in football, European football, and it's obviously not being solved anytime soon, and this is hardly the first or last example of it. But he got some bad advice. He jumped for the big money, and now he's hitting a lot of bumps in the road, and it's a shame to see. But the book is not written yet on Mykhailo Mudryk, and Arsenal may have been better off without him, at least for this season. They went out and got Leandro Trossard, who's been fantastic, and now they've got a lot more money to work with come this offseason for maybe a Declan Rice or somebody like that. So, hey, everything works out for a reason, right? In a year or so, we may be talking about Mykhailo Mudryk leading Chelsea to a top 4 finish. This could be 6 months away. It feels far-fetched now, but it is far from over for Mykhailo Mudryk. We'll see if he even gets in this Arsenal-Chelsea game today and how he plays out the remaining 4 or 5 games of the season here. But really, the future starts in August for Mykhailo Mudryk and Chelsea. What do you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Was he in the right place? Is he in the wrong place? I would love to hear your comments below on Mykhailo Mudryk and Chelsea and Arsenal and everybody else. Please comment below. Make sure you subscribe to this channel for me. Like the video. It helps out an awful lot. And of course, follow us on Twitter at TotalFIFACM, where we discuss this and every other topic under the sun. Thanks as always for joining us here on Stoppage Time at Pints and Punditry. This is Total FIFA Career Mode.